invitation. And all things are meant to be. Our thoughts and prayers were with Elliot last week when his mother passed away. I listened to Deb Bowers tell the most beautiful story about his mother and father as his dad prepared to enter the kingdom of heaven. And Elliot, though you're delivering our invocation today, know that our thoughts and prayers are with you.
I do want to thank everyone for all the prayers. They've been felt. My family has really been blessed throughout this process, and it is definitely a celebration in our household. She was dealing with a lot of suffering, and so she's in a much better place. I want to share with you something that happened with me yesterday. I have a teaser that gives me an alert on my phone when I have something that I need to plan for. And yesterday, while I was at my mother's house, got that little alert that says you have the invocation tomorrow. So I'm looking through a drawer, and there's my father's wallet. I hadn't looked at it in years. It's been passed for 9 years now. And started looking through his wallet, driver's license, everything's there. And in his wallet, folded nice and neat, was this. And I'll share it with you. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Eternal and ever-blessed God, continue to bless Rotary International and the work that it performs around the world. Bless also Columbia Rotary Club, its leadership and membership, and be with our members who are not present today. We feel your presence among us and ask that you grant unto us the wisdom to know what is right and the courage to always do the right thing. Grant unto us the vision to see the ideal and the discipline and the toil to toil towards it. Help us to never be satisfied with words without deeds, with plans without performance, with dreams without doing whatever is necessary to make the dream come true. Teach us the way to the stars. Teach us the way to the stars is always steep. That sweat is the price of all things precious. That there can never be any crown without a cross. Make us continually aware of your love for us, the power of your resources, and the strength of your blessing. Now please bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies, in order that we may better serve our fellow man and you. I make this blessing in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. Carrie Powers will be coming up to welcome our visiting Rotarians and guests.
Good afternoon. We have one visiting Rotarian, Mr. Jim Hudson. I saw him come in.
Right here.
From Columbia East. Hello, welcome. And now, if you have a guest, if you would please stand and introduce them to the club.
Good afternoon. My name's John Hurst, and we're pleased to have with us today Matt Moore, who is the staff of the Attorney General.
Thank you. My name is Tom Jackson. I'm very pleased to have as my guest Kelly Hall, who is a federal prosecutor with the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Staff.
Good afternoon, I'm Glenn Ward. I'm very happy to have my daughter Emily with me today. Emily just wrapped up 10th grade last week.
I am Gene Rogers, and it is my high honor and personal pleasure to introduce to you one of Columbia's outstanding, talented, gifted young lawyers, Melanie Graham, who practices with the Columbia firm of Moses and Price.
All right, that looks like got everybody. I hope everybody has a great week.
Thank you, Carrie. Gina Brown will be coming up to deliver Health and Happiness. Everybody at each table would take a moment just to lift up the cart bucket. If you have a dollar bill or some spare change, those funds are going to aid Alzheimer's research.
Good afternoon. Y'all alive? All right. Okay, now we continue to be encouraged. Okay, so Carrie wanted me to let the team know that voting opens for Free Times Best of Columbia on this Wednesday, and there are a lot of the Columbia Rotarians who have been nominated, so please make sure that you take the time to vote. So I got a little history lesson this morning from Mason Hardy, who told me that American Pharoah won the Belmont horse race. So it was, just let me finish. He told me to let me finish. It's the Triple Crown. That's the last time that's been done in 1978. The Kentucky Derby, the Perkins, and the Belmont. Perkins. All right, Mason, I got it in. Okay, so Jack Sloan. Hello. Jack Sloan wanted everybody to know that he retired from the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce on May 31st. He has now gone to work for Palmetto Lifeline, and they made him an offer he could not refuse, and he had to follow his passion. And so he said there's plenty of animals who need to be adopted, so he'll talk to you after the meeting to get those adoption papers signed. I saw the American Red Cross blood drive information on our table, so please make sure that we do that. Don't forget, we're trying to get 500 people at LeaderCast. Those of you who have not purchased your LeaderCast tickets, please make sure you do so and buy one for your friend. Okay, so how many husbands we have in here? All right, this is for you. The lady wanted her husband to go shopping with her on a Sunday afternoon during the winter. When she arrived at the counter, the clerk asked cash, check, or charge. As she fumbled for her wallet, he noticed a remote control for the television in her purse. So do you always carry your TV remote, the clerk asked? No, she replied, but my husband refused to come shopping with me, and I figured this was the most evil thing I could do to him legally during football season. So, don't raise your hand on this, but just think about this. How many mother-in-laws you know you truly don't like your daughter-in-law? So just don't raise your hand. Just listen. A young Italian man excited to tell his mother he's fallen in love and that he's going to get married. He says, just for fun, Mom, I'm going to bring over 3 women and you try to guess which one I'm going to marry. The mother agrees. The next day he brings 3 beautiful women into the house and sits down on the couch and they chat for a while. He then says, okay, Mom, guess which one I'm going to marry? She immediately replied, the one on the right. That's amazing, Mom. You're right. How did you know? The Italian mother said, I don't like her. Have a good Rotary week.
Thank you, Regina. Jim Morris is going to be coming up to do a logistical brief for next week's LeaderCast event, which is going to be on Thursday, June 18th at the Dartmouth School of Business.
This is a repeat from last time. So all I just want to do is remind everybody that LeaderCast is on the 18th. It is at the Dartmouth School of Business. Starts at 9 o'clock, so you can register at 8:30. Starts at 9 o'clock and it goes until 4:30, and there are 2 breaks, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and then there's a lunch break, and we'll provide lunch for you. The lunch will be up in the affair itself is in the auditorium, which is down on the 1st floor. So to get there, of course, everybody knows where Dartmouth is, right between the Coger Center and the Coliseum. So the place to park is directly downhill behind the Coger Center in the Discovery Garage. Only 2 ways to enter that. One is Park, and the other is College Street. Don't go in on the College Street, which is the road going straight towards the river between Assembly. Enter on Park Street. If you try to go to college, you'll get stuck at an access only, which is always labeled card access only. So don't go in something with a card access only, or you're going to have to back up. Go into the other one. The charge is $8 per car, and you'll pay on the way out. The way you'll pay and get the $8 charge is as you register in the Darla Moore School down on the first floor, you will be given a ticket, and that ticket is a validation ticket which you hold on to, so when you go back to your car at the end of the affair, you'll go back to your car, you'll come on out, and you'll pay the $8 charge rather than the $15 all-day charge. Now, if you're there for less, if you leave at lunch, you'll only be charged the hourly rate, which is $1 an hour, I think. So, and you'll park, you probably won't be able to park on the first, second, or third floor because those are the Department of Transportation and Darla Moore professors and such. But you can park anywhere above, and there should be plenty of parking for you there in the building. When you're walking back from the parking garage, and there are elevators, so if you've got somebody in a wheelchair, it's accessible. Just come out of the parking garage and walk right behind the Coger Center towards Darla Moore. A new surprise that I discovered today as I went into work. They have started the construction on Green Street. That's a wonderful thing. Yellow cones are a good thing around now. But they've completely blocked off Green Street right in front of the Darla Moore School. So, but you'd still walk to the Darla Moore School the same way you would have had those things not been there, those fences. You'll just come out of the garage. You'll head up the hill toward Assembly, and you'll walk right in the steps, which is right underneath all the flags at Darla Moore. You will notice that the whole street is blocked off with fencing because they're beginning that construction there. But it would not stop you from getting in there. It is still wheelchair accessible. There is a ramp going up at the Green Street entrance to Darla Moore. You'll walk up the steps, and when you walk up the steps, you are on the second floor. And then there'll be some people that will guide you to the right, and you'll go down the steps, or if you want, there's an elevator too. The cafe will be there right on your right if you want a latte. You can get yourself a latte. Otherwise, there'll be a little bit of coffee downstairs on the first floor just as you come in. Although there is no food and drink allowed in the auditorium. So if you're going to do something, if you're doing it at the last second, don't grab a cup of coffee as you're heading in the door because they won't let you do that. It is open seating except for the front. I think you'll see it sectioned off for certain of the sponsor seating to be available. And at lunch is provided there. As I said, it will be up in the Sunoco Pavilion, which is back up on the second floor. And you'll get your lunch, and there'll be a lot of places to sit. You can sit in the pavilion area, you can sit in the cafe area, there'll be some other tables around, so there should be a lot of places to sit. There is another affair going on in the smaller auditorium behind ours, but it should not impact. I just want you to know that it is going on. And I think that's all. Anybody have any questions? There is no. Oh, by the way, there is no valet parking because of all the construction and things. It just have been too difficult to do.
Jim, if we were wanted to give one of our tickets away at the last minute, how would we go about getting them to figure out how to get the right person?
Well, I think the answer to that will be that if you give them the physical ticket, then you'll be okay. And that's something you'll want to, I think you'll want to make sure you have is your physical ticket, right, Jack?
Yeah, and just tell us when they check in with your name, because I've got it alphabetically by who's purchased the ticket.
And for those people who have their smartphones, I think, and you pull your ticket up on the smartphone, that's the other way to show your ticket. I did go downstairs, and it's Wi-Fi accessible down there on the auditorium floor. Any other questions? Really looking forward to seeing you. I think it's going to be a great event. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Robert. That was a great question. If anybody needs to interchange tickets, we have thought through that process, and it should go seamlessly. There will be an email we'll send out this week that will outline some of what Jim's talked about. Each of you that have bought tickets should have received those in an email at the day of purchase. But if you cannot place that email, you can email myself or Jack, and we can re-forward you your tickets. But it's hard to believe this event is next Thursday. We're really looking forward to spending the day with everyone, just taking a day to kind of slow down from our roles, our day-to-day leadership, day-to-day responsibilities, to refocus on how we can have positive impact with the leadership platform that we've been given. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Mason to talk about our blood drive.
Ms. Regina did already mention the blood drive. She also mentioned that horse race that happened this weekend. To put it in perspective about the horse race, I looked at my 8-year-old after he won, and I said, the last time this happened, I was your age. She got big deer in the headlight looks and said, it might not happen again until you're my age, so it's a long time for a Triple Crown. Blood drive. This little flyer or one of these flyers is on your table. We're not going to have a meeting on Monday, John, is that right? Okay, so this is the last time we're going to be able to talk about this. And these are made for you all to just put in your pocket, take them home, or you can even take the big one home. The blood drive is next Friday at the Convention Center at 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Y'all can actually register and sign up for a specific time slot that you want. If you have a time slot in mind, come find me after the meeting. I'll write you down and sign you up. That's all we need is your email, and we'll remind you. But the blood drive is next Friday at the Convention Center, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's important to give blood in the summertime. There are no corporate donations that typically happen in the summer, no college donations because college is out, no high school donations. However, there's more traveling, there's more accidents that take place in the summertime, and there's a lot more elective surgeries using the blood. So it's very important to contribute during the summertime for the need. Again, next Friday, 7A to 3P. Feel free to find me afterwards and I'll sign you up. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mason. I'd now like to turn it over to Jonathan Millen to introduce our program.
Thank you, John. Afternoon, everyone. In South Carolina, the South Carolina Attorney General's Office is responsible for being the chief criminal prosecutor for our state, the chief securities officer, and is the chief legal counsel for all state offices. That office has 75 attorneys, a staff of over 200 employees, and a caseload of nearly 8,000 files. Today's Speaker, Alan Wilson, was elected on November 2nd, 2010 to succeed our own Henry McMaster as the 51st Attorney General for our state. This is actually, and it's a little known fact, but it's the third time he has worked in that office. He served as an intern under Charlie Condon, an assistant attorney general under Henry McMaster, and is now the elected attorney general. He was reelected to a second term on November 4th, 2014. During those 2 terms, he has done remarkable work trying to protect our family, protect our children, and protect internet security, as well as stomping out public corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a graduate of Francis Marion University, University of South Carolina School of Law. He was a co-founding member in 2002 of the West Metro Rotary, and importantly, he has no ties to Wofford College. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Alan Wilson.
Jonathan and I spoke early this morning. I had to take my daughter to her swim practice this morning, and I was standing by the pool in a suit. All the moms were there, and the dads were there in flip-flops and shorts, and I'm dressed like this, and we're on the phone. I don't know if you heard the splashing in the background, but he was wanting to go over my bio, and I says, if you speak for 60 seconds, you spoke for 30 seconds too long. But that was well done, and I appreciate those kind of remarks. First off, when I come and speak to this group, and I've spoken to this Rotary Club a handful of times over the last 4 or 5 years, I always have to say that it was this club that my father had participated in for decades, especially during his time and tenure in the State Senate. And I'd come here as his guest. I'd gone to his local club in West Columbia, and it was because of that being brought up under the shadow of this club and the members of this club, many of you who I considered almost like family, if not actual family. It was because of you that I joined Rotary myself and really fell in love with this community. And so this club is special to me in that regard. Second, I was I've been trying to make eye contact with several of y'all out there. Some of you won't look at me. I'm not going to do what Joe Wilson does, where I introduce half the, say we love Jesus, talk about how great South Carolina is, introduce half the room and then sit down. It's a slippery slope when you do that. I was talking to Glenn in the back. Someone asked me if I was going to get a keychain. I said, I don't have keychains. I'm not going to give you a business card unless you ask me for one. But Glenn said I need to toggle my thumbs and say truly a lot. Hey and truly a lot. Hey and truly. So anyway, there. That's my best Joe Wilson impersonation. But and of course, Dad, when I told him I was coming here, told me to give you his regards. He loves this club and he loves many of you, and it is so wonderful. As I watched the room and I was trying to make eye contact, I'm not going to do the name game, but there are so many of you. I call out a few. General, I'm still calling you General. Lieutenant Governor McMaster, I just want to thank you for your leadership in state government. And last year you were standing beside me when many weren't, and I really appreciate your leadership. And it's funny, I did get to work for Henry back when I was an assistant AG, and it's funny, I'm now the they that I used to complain about down from the 5th floor. When you get to the 7th floor, now you've gone corporate. In fact, one of my former co-workers said that, Wilson's gone corporate because I became the Attorney General. But it is a hard job, and I don't think people realize how hard a job it is, and I truly have a great deal of respect for your time in that office. Of course, I watched, obviously, Matt Orr, who drove me here, was introduced as a guest. Kelly Wilson Hall, I gotta give my girl a shout out. They said that she is a federal prosecutor. Well, the feds stole her from me, and I'm sick and tired of the feds messing with me and my state. And they took one of my best prosecutors from me. Kelly was instrumental. She was very involved in the domestic violence early on, in the early drafts of the legislation before she went to work with my good friend Bill Nettles. And obviously human trafficking, two things I'm going to talk about momentarily. But I want to give her a shout out. Obviously, Melanie Graham, who was in my office last week and a guest today, all the way from Montana. You had to want to be in South Carolina. You came here, and she was telling me her biography, how she came to South Carolina to raise her family and to start her career. Left Montana, came here for this purpose. We have a great state, and we're attractive to people all over the country, and you're just an example of that. And of course, I'm not going to do it, but I don't want to go down the name game, but there's so many of you that I'm looking at right now, and I really appreciate what you do for this community. I want to take one moment before I get into the meat of my remarks. This weekend, and there's a reason I'm going to tell you about this, because we live in a society right now where the presidential race is gearing up, and you're going to hear all kinds of things said by folks on both sides, and even in the primaries, and there's a lot of hitting and biting and scraping. It's like being in kindergarten again in politics. But sometimes in politics, you get to know people for who they are, not what letters behind their name. And a very good friend of mine was laid to rest on Saturday. That's former Attorney General Bo Biden. And I wanted to just take a moment to recognize him. Many of you didn't have the opportunity to know him personally. You know his dad, he's the vice president, you knew who he was. But I got to know him personally. And that's one of the greatest reasons for being Attorney General is the people you get to meet, how they leave an imprint on your life. And all the wonderful things you read about Bo Biden were true. He was a statesman, he was a good guy, and it broke my heart, it devastated me when I learned of his passing. I knew that he had been struggling, but I want to tell you a quick story. The first night that I ever met Bo, it was actually about 3 weeks after I was elected Attorney General. It was in late November of 2010. I was Attorney General-elect Alan Wilson, hadn't been sworn in yet. And I went to the first National Association of Attorneys General. We call it NAG. I think it's an appropriate acronym. NAG, because we nag. But I was up in the hospitality suite, and of course, being new to the job, but not even on the job, but being new to this life, I'm seeing all these famous people and all these electeds and politicians, et cetera, and I'm up in hospitality suite, and I was there with a handful of AGs, Republican and Democrat, and they were all having beverages and just chatting and talking, and I was sitting there, and I saw Bo Biden walking, and I recognized Bo, so I walked up and I introduced myself, and we were having a very polite, pleasant chat, and one of the AGs walks up. He's kind of a hipster. I don't even need to say who he is, but he put his arm around Bo and he says, "Hey, Bo, this is my boy, Alan Wilson. His daddy yelled at your daddy's boss in front of national TV." Thank you. Bo looked at him and he said, blank, said his name, shut up, go sit down. And of course, he grabbed his beer and he walked and sat on the couch. And I looked at Bo and I said, wow, this is awkward. I said, we started to talk about it. We talked about the recent unpleasantness the previous year. For those of you who know what happened, it's the incident that got Dad landed on the back of a Trivial Pursuit card or a $1,000 question on Jeopardy. We talked about it, and Bo and I started to chat, and that initiated a conversation where we talked about the respect that Dad had for his father, who they had gone on Codell's together overseas, and how his father had actually defended Dad about to some of the administration, said some really horrible things that weren't true or accurate, and we started to talk about the mutual respect that they had with one another, our two dads had with one another. And then we started to talk more, and of course I realized that Bo had lost his mother when he was very young, when he was 2. I had lost my biological father when I was very young. Bo had grown up in kind of a political shadow of his dad. I had grown up in that similar situation, not quite as high profile, but grew up around politics. Bo went on to become an attorney and then a prosecutor. I had done the same thing. Bo had joined the National Guard. I had done the same thing. I had served in Iraq in a combat zone. Bo had served in Iraq in a combat zone. Bo had been elected Attorney General. I had been elected Attorney General. Bo had a young family. I had a young family. Bo and I were the only 2 Iraqi war veterans as serving on the attorney, out of all the attorney generals in the country. Bo and I had a great deal in common, and we realized that there was so many more values that we shared than what separated us. And while we came from different parties and we had some different opinions on things, he was truly a remarkable person. And just be grateful for your blessings in life, because none of us are guaranteed another day. The last time I talked to Bo was last year. His father was speaking at Carolina, and I was sitting in traffic that the motorcade had caused, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna call Bo. It had been about a year since the stroke, and then y'all remember he'd gone to Walter Reed and he got MD Anderson, I think, and had the checkup, and I hadn't talked to him. He hadn't been participating in NAG, so I went and I called him from the car as I was waiting on traffic to clear from the Vice President's motorcade. He answered the phone. He said, "Hey, Alan." I said, "Hey, Bo." He said, "What you doing?" I said, "I'm sitting in a traffic jam that your dad just caused." and he laughed. He laughed. He said, "I meant to come down on that trip." And I said, "Well, Bo, don't come to my state without calling me." And he said, "No, I'm going to make it down there. When I do, we're going to get together and hang out." And I said, "Bo, I would like that." And I said, "Bo, it's none of my business. Obviously, we've all read about you. I just want to acknowledge that we're praying for you. We love you. If there's anything I can do, don't hesitate to call me." He said, "Alan, thank you. I really appreciate that." I said, "God bless you, brother." He said, "You too." And we hung up. That was last May. That's the last time we spoke. So I just want to tell you that sometimes you get to be friends with people on the other aisle who really are good people and who do good work. And I want to recognize that, because too often we focus on what divides us and not what brings us together. When I was elected Attorney General, one of the first things I did is I went to the Democrat and Republican caucuses of the General Assembly and I said, "Guys, there are going to be 3 kinds of issues that we're going to have." And I was really focused on the Democrats at this time, but I really should have been focused on the Republicans. But I went and I told the Democrats, I said, "There's 3 kinds of issues that we're going to have. Issues where we agree. 100% agree. I'm going to be your best friend, your strongest ally. I will go to the mattress for you. I hope you will do the same thing." Then there's that second tier of issue. That's the issue where we're going to have some disagreement, but I'm going to give up something. I'm going to compromise something. I hope you'll give up something. You'll compromise something. We'll both walk away from the negotiating table angry, which means it's a good deal, right? We all walk away with something. We gave something. We got something. That's kind of what happened with domestic violence this year. I said in those cases, we'll both walk away. We would have gotten something done. It won't be perfect, but it'll be something. Then the third tier of issues that we'll have is those issues that are just pure. We're at an impasse. There's no way to reconcile our differences. There's no way to come together and agree on anything. You're going to have to dig in. I'm going to have to dig in. And we're going to have to fight it off and fight it out. And what I would propose that we do, and this is what I intend to do, is I will take the mantle of our friendship, our relationship, I will put it on the shelf. I will crawl into a proverbial boxing ring, as will you. We will duke it out, metaphorically speaking. We will fight it out in the court of public opinion, in the courts of law if necessary, and obviously in the halls of the General Assembly. And one of us will be the winner, one of us will be the loser. In any event, regardless of which I am, I will step out of that ring, I will take the gloves off, I will put the mantle of our friendship back on, I will shake your hand and either say congratulations or saying, nice try, let's move to the next issue, and then I will move to the next issue because we need each other. We need each other. So my wife and I have 2 children, we share a mortgage, we share a life together, we made a lifelong commitment. I'll tell you right now, how many of you agree with your spouse all the time? Not one hand rose. No one agrees with their spouse all the time, yet we hold a higher standard to strangers than we do our own family. So what you gotta do is you gotta look for room for compromise. You gotta look for room where we can come together and get things done for the state of South Carolina. That was what I had said my first year in office. I had not had the opportunity to go back and address those two caucuses like that in quite some time. But I have had the opportunity this year to have one of the most successful years in the General Assembly. Some of the things that we got done, things that you haven't even heard about yet. I have to say, I got to change the bio in the office. We are up to nearly 90 lawyers now because we've expanded some of the violent crimes prosecution, the violence against women, human trafficking, SNAP fraud, the food stamp fraud that you hear about. We're expanding in those areas because there's just too much for the number of people we have. So our office has grown a little bit in its core function, but we are busier than we've ever been. But that coming together, where so many people of different views, some within my own party, some in the other party, who came together, and everybody gave up something. I want to talk first about domestic violence. Everybody gave up something on domestic violence. It was one of the hallmark pieces of legislation this session. When I say I, let me take out the I. We had what I believe to be the largest press conference on the first day of the session. Lieutenant Governor McMaster, sorry I don't have this die hard, was there with me, and it was bipartisan. We had victims advocates, we had members of both bodies, both parties, we had families of victims and survivors, we had law enforcement, sheriffs, police chiefs, we had nonprofit groups, corporate groups showed up, and it was such a big scrum of media that you couldn't tell where the phalanx of people behind the podium ended and the media began. It was just a full circle. And they showed that picture all year long when they did stories on domestic violence reform. And it was something I was proud to be part of. Our office was very involved in helping draft the initial drafts. I was meeting with members of the House and the Senate, the leadership, Speaker Lucas, Chairman Martin, obviously Senator Hembry and Senator Hutto were very involved, Katrina Shealy. In the House, you had Chairman Delaney, you had Chairman David Weeks. I mean, I'm calling off names of folks in both parties. We all came together and we produced a product that I think has brought us infinitely farther than we were when we started the session on that very first day. It is not a perfect bill. No one's going to pretend it is a perfect bill. And I'm here today to challenge the General Assembly that this should not be a one and done deal. We should be talking about domestic violence every year. Now, it does not need to occupy all the airways and all the oxygen in the room because there are lots of other important issues. Economic development, funding of roads, schools, the issues we have there from the Abbeville case. But we need to be talking about the thing that is degrading the fundamental building block of society, and that is the family. Domestic violence is a corrosive and evil crime, and it's not like being punched in the face by a stranger in a parking lot. When you're being beaten by your spouse, you're affecting the next generation. When we drafted that law, one of the things, and Kelly was there the very first day we started drafting it, we said domestic violence is built, it is based on the number of times you come in that you've been convicted previously. That's what the penalty is built on. So I could beat my wife really bad, okay? The prosecutor prosecuting me would have two options, a 1 to 10 year felony for domestic violence high and aggravated, or a 0 to 30-day misdemeanor. Well, obviously you couldn't get the 1 to 10 year felony. Who's going to plead to a 1 year minimum in prison, right? They had a 30-day misdemeanor, that was it. And a lot of times that they would commit that crime, they would commit horrible acts in front of the children. And so we look at it like this. We look at it like a bag of golf clubs. The way we were staffing and arming local prosecutors and law enforcement officers, it was like the way we would give a golfer a bag of golf clubs, but only give them 2 clubs, a putter and a driver. A lot of you play golf. There's a lot of golf between the tee and the green, right? Between the hole. There's a lot of golf. And we were just giving them 2 tools. So we said we're not going to base domestic violence on the type of on the number of times you have been convicted in the past, because you could beat someone really bad and only get convicted for a 30-day misdemeanor in magistrate court. We base it on the type of harm you commit. So we made high and aggravated nature a 0 to 20 year felony. First degree domestic violence, which is a great bodily injury, is 0 to 10 year felony. Then we made second degree, which is moderate bodily injury, a 3-year misdemeanor, and then third degree, which is the least of the injuries, it's still an injury, we made it at 0 to 90 days. And then we said, wait a second, in 30 years, prosecutors and cops have seen the same thing happen over and over. There are certain things that you see in almost every single case. We see children who are the victims, they're victims too, by the way, when they witness that type of crime. People ask why is South Carolina number 2 in the country and women being killed by men. Well, you look at the generational transfer of that, what is normal. Little boys grow up and see daddy beating mama, and they think this is how boys are supposed to treat girls. This is normal. This is how you resolve conflict. Little girls seeing mama getting beat by daddy, and little girls think this is what a normal relationship is. And I don't want to stereotype it, but these children grow up thinking that this is normal. They have no frame of reference, and they grow up, and what are they more likely to do? To condone or go along with or be involved in a relationship that is similar to what they're familiar with. Not always, but more often than not. And then the cycle of violence is carried over to the next generation, is passed along. So why don't we codify that? I've often said in speeches, we codify what we believe. We codify our values. We currently live in a state where you beat your dog, you get 5 years, you beat your wife, you get 30 days. That is no one's values, ladies and gentlemen. So what we decided to do is if you beat your spouse in front of your minor children, we're going to upgrade you to the next higher offense. So if you commit a 3rd degree, which is a 0 to 90 day, and you do it in the presence of your minor children, we're going to codify that value. We should protect the sanctity of childhood. You're going to be put up to a 3-year misdemeanor. If you're at the 3-year misdemeanor, we're going to bump you to the felony. If you smash a cell phone, if you prevent them from calling for help, we're going to penalize you for that. We're going to upgrade you up. If you have done this in the past, we're going to acknowledge recidivism. We're going to bump you up. So we put in place aggravating factors or enhancements that those cops who are the first responders and those prosecutors who usually receive it first, that extra bag of clubs, those tools, we're basically codifying our values, and we're giving more tools and resources to those on the front line so that we can more adequately address this type of crime and hold people accountable appropriately. Now, it's also about the batterers, not just about the victims. A lot of batterers batter for a lot of reasons. Some are just bad, some are sick, some need help, some have PTSD, a lot of veterans. So we need to address the batterers treatment programs, make sure there's a minimum treatment program. So if you move out of Columbia and you go down to Allendale, that you're not transferring from a batterers treatment program that's the gold standard to one that's, you meet for 3 days a week for 2 weeks and you get a Microsoft Word certificate and you've completed it. We need to have minimum standards. We need to be in the schools educating children, giving that 8-year-old or that 6-year-old a counterpoint to what they're seeing in the home. These kids don't ever get their notions of what is normal challenged until much later in life. At that point, their values are already ingrained and instilled at a molecular level in their being. It's much harder to deprogram them at that point. So we need to get proactive. This is a reactive bill. We recognize that. But that is just one of the things I want to talk to you about domestic violence. Okay, I'm very cognizant of the time, so I'm going to go to human trafficking. Human trafficking is another problem we have in the state. Many people are shocked when I say that. Human trafficking is a $30 billion a year industry worldwide. It is the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, second only behind arms and drug trafficking. Many people think of human trafficking as what Liam Neeson fights in that movie, Take It, which is a great movie, and it is a wonderful movie, but it is kind of instilled in our minds that people don't see human trafficking on a day-to-day basis. Or if they do, they don't call it human trafficking, they call it prostitution, or they'll call it something else. But in our state of South Carolina, and by the way, the country, the United States is the #1 destination for that crime in the world. And human trafficking is everywhere. Last fall, I was talking to a North Charleston police officer who was in the middle of several investigations. He said, Alan, I can't stop finding human traffickers. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. And in 2012, the General Assembly passed a law, a human trafficking statute, which was a great law. In fact, it took us from, sadly, from one of the worst states in the country, where we were ranked at that time by the Polaris Project, to one of the best states in the country on the type of enforcement. It was a very holistic bill. It covered everything. It covered the regulatory aspects, the administrative aspects. It gave defenses that didn't exist. It gave us the ability to go after the ill-gotten proceeds of the human traffickers, to give it to the victims. It allowed us to promote and educational initiatives to get into the schools and protect the children and the migratory workers who are being trafficked to labor, which is modern-day slavery, ladies and gentlemen. It's alive and well in South Carolina. We got that. General Assembly made a mistake. It was unintentional. You see, human trafficking is a lot like drug trafficking. You're selling a product, you're selling illegally a product for money. And people who do that, they do what? They go all over the place. We all go between here and Lexington, Calhoun. We drive Orangeburg. We drive all over the place. Fairfield. You go in multiple counties every day. The bad guys are the same. Problem is, in the human trafficking statute, well, that young woman who that cop has been working with for 6 weeks finally opens up and tells her about all the places she's been sold. Because remember, she started off as a defendant. Okay? She started off as a defendant, not a victim. And it was only when they realized that she was a victim, they started interviewing her. She's not telling people things. She finally does tell them only for the law enforcement officer to say, stop. You can't tell me anymore because you're going to have to go across the river or you're going to have to go down the interstate and tell this story all over again because that's not our jurisdiction. Well, we have the ability in the state grand jury to go after those thugs the way we do drug traffickers, or we go after drug traffickers. We do not have the ability to do that with human traffickers. The General Assembly had intended for it to be that way in 2012. They said, we want you to use the state grand jury, which is the most powerful investigative tool in the state. And it can go farther and faster and cross jurisdictional boundaries like the feds do, and it can gather information that conventional investigations can't, and it allows us to protect, or better protect, the victims and not let the bad guys know we're coming. They forgot to put that in the State Grand Jury Act. They put it in the Human Trafficking Act, but not in the State Grand Jury. So we could not use the State Grand Jury until a month and a half ago when the General Assembly came together and they gave the State Grand Jury the jurisdiction, gave us the ability to better partner with the feds, to go after these modern-day slave traders and these thugs that are operating here in Richland County. Now what we've got to do is we've got to train our prosecutors, we've got to train our law enforcement, we've got to train our school resource officers, we've got to train you, the citizens of this county, the local businesses, how to spot it, how to see it, and how to report it. We've got a task force that we partnered with the feds, we've partnered with multiple state agencies. And we're out there and we're developing a plan. And by the way, the bill that the governor signed that gives us the grand jury the jurisdiction to go after the human traffickers, you know I can't talk about grand jury matters, but I can tell you that bill, within a week, came off the shelf. It is not on the shelf right now. It is being used, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm telling you right now, I couldn't be more proud of the work that we're doing, along with our friends at the federal level and local law enforcement. We're starting to fight that most people do not even recognize. I see it's a quarter after. I'm going to take a couple more minutes, maybe 5 more minutes, and then I'll give the balance of my time for you. Another thing I want to talk to you about, and this is something that I'm going to start going forward next year. We need to reform our government. Now, why is the Attorney General talking about this? Because last year, my thinking was crystallized on how I view the government and how transparent it truly is. I know ethics reform has been debated. There have been a lot of ethics reforms. But last year, I endured something that really crystallized the way I see our state, the way I see our state government. We have wonderful men and women in all 3 branches of government, and they're served for the right reasons. We all disagree on things, and we all fight and bicker like a bunch of kindergartners, but most people, I believe, are here for the right reasons. But there are enough people in state government, in those 3 branches, that are not here for the right reasons, or when they come here for the right reasons, they change, and they become part of the problem. But that is not transparent. You don't know about it, and I can't talk about it right now. What I can tell you is this. The first thing we did is we got the state grand jury reformed. That in order for it, so that now if the state grand jury and the chief of SLED and the attorney general believe that there is public corruption, that we don't have to go to a judge anymore to ask permission to perform a purely executive function, that is, investigate a bad person or a person doing a bad thing without having to go to the court. Why is that important? Because what if the court is having their budget voted on by the individuals being investigated, or what if the court is being elected by the individuals? Even if there is no wrong action there, the perception is there. And so we need to change. First off, we've already changed the way we do grand jury investigations. That was signed last week. And now we will never have to go to a judge to ask permission to do our jobs ever again, and we can never have a judge stop us from doing our jobs ever again if they want to do that. What we can do now is go to the next level. There's 3 branches of government. I learned this in the 3rd grade. What I learned as a 41-year-old is that there's really 2 branches of government, the executive and the legislative. I'm glad you caught that joke. Sometimes I hear crickets. Good men and women in the General Assembly. Good men and women on the bench, and I'm not gonna paint them with a broad brush. But appearances matter, perception matters. I believe in the change the way we elect judges. There are 2 states in this country that do it the way we do it, us and Virginia. We have a system where the Judicial Merit Selection Committee is composed of 10 people, all of whom are elected by the General Assembly, 6 of whom are members of the General Assembly, who get to pick 3 candidates to get voted on by the General Assembly. Then the General Assembly votes on the very nominees that it created, then puts them on the bench, and then approves their budget. Where is the check and balance in the 3 branches of government there, ladies and gentlemen? And it matters. If you don't think it matters, talk to the business community when they don't get something that they don't get the court rules a certain way. Talk to a victim when, because of who was on the other side, on the defense side, affected how something was ruled on. It doesn't happen often, but it happens often enough. And so we need to change the way we elect judges. I would also like to see more rotation in leadership. The governor rotates out after 2 cycles if they're able to get reelected. I understand the House has redone their rules so that the Speaker is capping the number of terms. I commend Speaker Lucas for recommending that. I'm proud of him for doing that. The governor answers to all of us, whether you're for or against, like the governor. At least the governor's accountable to all the people. Speaker of the House, and the Speaker's taken a leadership role in this, I'm going to give him credit, is only answers to a small House district, but has the power to run an entire branch of government, at least half a branch of government. The pro tem of the Senate answers to a Senate district, but only needs 24 votes to run the other half a branch of government. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and this is not about personalities, but think about it, 86 votes, and they run an entire branch of government. That's 300 plus judges, from magistrate all the way up to Supreme Court for a decade. So I think we need to have a situation where you can stay in office, you can get elected, you stay there, but you rotate out of power every couple of years. The Chief Justice rotates off and becomes an associate. The Speaker rotates off, either goes home or becomes a senior member or a chairman, same with the pro tem of the Senate. These things can be done, some constitutionally, some can be done by rules, but I think that we need to rotate power because we all know that old adage, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And there are good people in those positions, and there have been good people in those positions throughout history, and they do a great job. But appearances matter, ladies and gentlemen. I'm calling on you. If you think what I say sounds halfway decent, halfway good, then tell your members about that. These are things that I'm going to be championing next year and the year after and the year after until I'm gone. These are things that I think we need in our government because I think it's important. Ethics reform is important. Independent investigative bodies are important. But this is important too. And I know that there's a lot of funding issues in education and in transportation, and those are hitting us right now. Those need to be addressed immediately. But for the long term, the kind of government we have says a lot about the kind of people we are. And I think that it's a reflection of us if we allow a government that is antiquated and anachronistic based on a constitution that's 120 years old. I think it's time to change it for the better. And we've made a lot of changes. The governor and members of the General Assembly have passed laws and they have changed it. They have moved the needle, and I commend them for that, both parties. But I'm here today to tell you it's time to move to the next level. And this is my new calling. Last year happened for a reason. If nothing else, it crystallized my thinking and gave me a sense of purpose in this job. It's what I intend to do. People are going to not be happy about that, and that's fine. I'm okay making people upset. Just ask my wife. But this is what I'm going to be working on next year and the years to come. Now, it is 1:22. So I got a couple of minutes. They told me to shut up at 1:25. I meant to give you more, but you got 3 minutes. Are there any questions from the audience on positions or things that we do? Yes, ma'am.
I applaud your efforts and results on the domestic violence bill. I think that's a really significant step. Would you be interested in drafting a bill to get our roads fixed?
You know, a lot of times it's not so much the content of the legislation as the process in which we try to get it passed. And I haven't weighed in on that because that is way outside my lane. But I am happy to sit down. One thing I was really proud of, the leadership of the House and the Senate invited me to almost every meeting or a large number of meetings to hammer out differences of opinion on domestic violence. I was honored to be invited, to be able to sit at the table for once and contribute. And for however much they think we contributed, I was grateful for that. I will sit down with members of the General Assembly on any bill, regardless of whether it's in my bailiwick or not. I just don't want to step on people's toes. And like I said, I know when it's my turn and I know when it's not my time, and I'll stay out of the way. But yeah, I'm happy to help out in that regard. Yes, sir.
Last time you spoke with us, you were talking about human trafficking. You gave an example of, I think it was a high school kid who kind of been roped into this scenario.
That's right.
Ended up in that. Scared the you-know-what out.
Should.
So as citizens and as parents, what are the sorts of things we should have our antenna up for to notice signs of something like that going on?
Well, a lot of times when you see a teenager acting rebellious, we just write it up to, that's a teenager acting rebellious. And a lot of times it is a teenager acting rebellious. I was one of those teenagers. Just ask Rusty to pass, he'll tell you. He's not here right now. He helped raise me. But a lot of times kids are doing drugs or kids are acting out for various reasons. A lot of the symptoms that we see, we attribute it to something else because human trafficking is kind of a surreal crime. It happens in movies, and if it happens in real world, it happens overseas or in big major metropolitan cities. First off, recognize that it happens in Lexington, it happens in Columbia, it happens in Casey, it happens in Peoria, it happens everywhere. And once you get that over, past your thinking and realize that it's not a Hollywood movie, it's real life. Labor and sex trafficking happens in this community, then you start to see things differently. You see a prostitute on the street. I don't know many little girls who say, when I grow up, I want to sell my body for sex. I don't know many little 8-year-old girls that say that. There's a reason they're there. Sometimes it's drug addiction, sometimes it's destitution, but sometimes they are being sold against their will, or maybe they have been put in that position where they have no options. And there's always a reason, and it's a nefarious one. So recognizing, and we are putting together education packets on that, and we're going to be getting out in the communities. By the way, I will come to any community. I'm sure Kelly will too, from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and she used to be my education coordinator in the Attorney General's office, and she should be up here talking and not me on it. Have her back to talk about human trafficking. Sorry, Kelly, 300 bucks. But we will go anywhere to speak to any group. I'll come to your living room. If you bring a neighborhood group together, I will speak in your driveway if you want. But we will go anywhere, 2 or more gather, we will go to educate. But it's going to take time. I have a minute, or just under a minute. I do want to say one quick alibi. We just started a food stamp fraud program. Now, every time I say this, I hear someone say good, or I hear a clap, or an amen, or something. Because, and I don't get that with human trafficking, because people don't see human trafficking, but most people have seen some evidence of Medicaid frauds, food stamp frauds, because it happens so frequently. We're one of 7 states to get a federal grant to do that. We're the only state in the country right now to have a dedicated prosecutor, and we work with DSS, who administers the grant and provides the investigator. And we've already recovered nearly $50,000 in the last couple of months, and that's just with a skeleton crew. This is a program that there's millions of dollars being defrauded on you, the taxpayers, and a lot of hungry children are not getting the money that was intended for them because someone would rather use that food stamp money to go buy drugs or crack or booze or go to a strip club. We're coming after them, and I just want to give that program a quick shout out. We just started it this year. Okay, I'm shutting up because he's standing up and it's 1:25. Rotarian, you'll attest to that. I haven't been active this year because of my schedule, but I love this program. I love this community, and I thank you for allowing me to remain to be part of it because it has a profound impact and imprint on my life. God bless you all.
Alan, thank you. On behalf of the club, please accept this. We're thankful that you fight the good fight. We also found a lot of insight in the story you shared with Bo about focusing on the ties that bond us together and not what tears us apart.
And John Monk, this is under $25. So.
President-elect Mark, upcoming programs?
Next week, we'll not be here at SeaWorld, so next Monday, don't come here. We're going to meet Thursday, June 18th, at the Darla Moore School of Business for LeaderCast. So look forward to seeing all of you next Thursday. Have a good week.
Okay. So that's next Thursday, June 18th, LeaderCast. We look forward to seeing everyone there. Rusty and Jim will close us in America's Beautiful.